And Ali, as you always say, if you like the show, we really appreciate that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Why do you do that? I always tell my students, because it improves your search and helps the algorithm find and boosts our numbers. So we really appreciate it if you could do that. And of course, donate to the podcast. Help these poor, starving podcast administrators do their job.
We're experts now. We need to call ourselves experts. We're specialists.
We are specialist experts. That's correct.
That's right.
We'll put the link in the show notes. It's on Patreon. And if you donate to the podcast, you get one of these lovely, look at this beautiful mug here. This beautiful mug with our iconic Shanghai John logo. So that's available to you. Ali, how many coffee mugs do you have with Shanghai John?
I've got 2.
Oh, you got 2? Okay. I just got this one. I got this one, but I definitely need to order more. Ali, in episode 88, we sat down with our good friend Jaco Terschegert. We explored about how the traditional agency model might be rebuilt from the ground up, what to keep, what to cut, and how to survive the collapse of holding company structures. It was a very popular podcast, by the way, but the conversation was largely about the architecture, the bones of the new agency, what the planners do, what the creatives do. Today, we're going deeper into that nervous system, how creativity, data, and human ingenuity will actually flow through these new structures. Because as the industry unravels under the weight of efficiency, consolidation, and artificial intelligence, the real question, Ali, isn't about how agencies are organized. It's whether creativity itself can still lead. And to unpack all of this, we are joined by our very good friend, David Mayo, friend of Asia, friend of China, veteran brand strategist, former WPP leader, and founder of ADNA, a consultancy built on the belief that data fuels creativity, and its sister initiative, ADA, which challenges every assumption in the creative process. We know David from his Ogilvy days. David has worked with some of the world's most iconic brands, from Nike to Diageo to Coca-Cola to Huawei, and spent his decades helping businesses bridge the hard edge of strategy with the art of human insight. And guess what, Ali? I bet you don't know this, but David is also the author of a book called Raw: Persuasive Creativity in Asia. And
fantastic.
Here it is. It's a fantastic book, really. I love this book. It's beautifully done, and wrote it with our good friend Kunal Sinha. Great book. And I guess the first question we have for David is about his mantra, which is think like the Navy, act like the pirates. David, welcome to Shanghai John.
Thank you, guys. Absolutely fantastic to be here. So walking on the shoulders of giants here. I mean, I've seen some of the previous people on this podcast. It's clearly very well read. I'm surprised that Ali's only got 2 cups. There must be people out there with more. I'm absolutely sure of it.
That was when we lived. That's when we were in China, where we had a steady flow of inexpensive merch that we could just buy on Taobao. I guess the first question, David, is let's unpack think like the Navy, act like the pirates. Where did you come up with that? That's outrageous.
I'd like to think we invented it, to be honest. It was in the days I had we called it a guerrilla marketing agency, and I'll explain what that means in just a moment. But we kicked it off in the year 2000. It was a pre-social agency. The whole premise of this thing was that you would do something that one person would see and 1 million people would hear about. So, a low-cost airline, for example, like AirAsia, which we helped to launch out of Singapore, we couldn't afford advertising, so we sent a guy to the airport to queue up with all the taxi drivers. When you get off a plane, it's got your thing. And they went to certain flights of the competitors like Value Air and Tiger Airways, and everyone else had like Ali's name on it, Bryce's name on it, David's name. Our guy had a thing that sort of said, you could have flown from Bangkok to Singapore for $28, and these people are getting off a flight that they've spent, $78 on, kind of thing. But it wasn't just that. I mean, people were taking pictures of it themselves on their phones. There wasn't social media in those days to share it with, or not the same virulent way there is today. But we would make sure we took pictures. We just sent it to the newspapers. And of course, sure as eggs are eggs, the next day, it's all over the newspapers. And we were, you start off in the middle of the paper, but the more these things went on and on and on, they just got further to the front of the paper. We did one that was pretty antagonistic in many ways, but it was outside every McDonald's. You got that big bench with Ronald McDonald on it. And we were working with KFC at the time, but down by Ronald McDonald's big red boot, we had just put like an empty KFC bag, meaning in his time off, when he's having his lunch, he kind of prefers KFC, took the picture, sent it off, and there was uproar, absolute uproar. So thinking like the Navy...
It's Singapore, of course there is.
Yeah, exactly. But thinking like the Navy, act like the pirates means even if you're doing stuff that feels like that, so that feels kind of light, but feels kind of like a bit cheeky and stuff like that, it doesn't mean that you can't be clever doing it. IKEA very famously says you don't have to be rich to be clever, you know? And I would, and I'd sort of like torture that slightly and sort of say, you don't have to be sensible to be clever. You can think with both sides of your brain. Cleverness would come, arguably, I'm not an expert, from the left-hand side of your brain, which is strategic thought, rational thought, but creativity comes from the other side of your brain, the right-hand side of your brain, and if you can work both of those sides, both of those muscles together, they complement each other really well. A great example of this is, think back to the best finance person you ever worked with. That finance person is perhaps one of the most creative people you've ever worked with. Why? Because they have to deal with you, all your vagaries, it's not just, I don't want to sit by the window. It's kind of, I need to build this now in pursuit of a better idea. How can we do that without breaking the rules? And a lot of the best finance people I've ever worked with have been really, really strong right-brainers. So thinking like the Navy and acting like the pirates is behaving as your mother would see you behave. Like, you can be anyone in front of your mum. That's fine. But keep it real. Make sure that you are there for a commercial purpose. Clients don't pay us for nothing at all. Make sure that you're there for your client as an individual. They've got to answer to their bosses. Like, if you make them look like a clown in front of their bosses, they won't come back to you anyway. So think strategically, but act creatively.
That's awesome. And that really transitions well into our discussion today, specifically about the role of creativity in this new model. I mean, it almost seems that efficiency has become the enemy of originality, and that we've put so much on efficiency that now we're seeing, it's happening to Omnicom. A lot of news about DDBs falling apart, or at least changing. Is it economic structure or creative culture? And as I said, has efficiency quietly become the enemy of originality?
It's a good one. I mean, when we started ADNA, we used to say that speed doesn't have to compete with creativity. All right. So that basically means every client that I know is in a hurry. All right. They're on the countdown clock from the day they join the organization. There are these stats that say, the average life of a CMO or a CEO changes every time. I don't even know who produces these stats.
Or something.
3 years. Yeah, 3 years.
If it's 3 years, it's sad, because the days of the days of longevity and a kind of constantly upward radio wave, they're over. There's no space for the radio wave anymore. It's got to be up or flat, but down, even flat's bad, but down, and your days are numbered. So every marketing director now is treated like a manager of an English Premier League team. You live or die on the back of your last match, basically. And so I think that efficiency, and I would also add expediency, they're not cousins. I think they're now siblings, to be honest, because efficiency takes a lot more time than the expedients require it to. So the idea of ADNA at the beginning was that if you could still have creativity, and I still believe in two things. One is the power of a brand, the invisible thing that you own. You see other people's partners and wives and husbands and partners and everything. And sometimes you kind of go, at what point did you look over that glass of wine and go, yep, that's the one for me, But the point is, but that doesn't matter to anybody else apart from the people that are in this thing. And that is what a brand does. The brand is the invisible draw between the invisible transaction, the invisible relationship between, in this case, the brand, everything it stands for, and the individual, and where it lives in that individual's heart. To do that takes time. We can all be lyrical. We can all take those snapshots that I just explained, put them in the newspaper. But with time to be creative in that way, I think you have more of an opportunity of engaging with people. And a good example of this is Coca-Cola last year with their Christmas ad. Coca-Cola is Christmas. They put themselves out. They want to own Christmas, and they do a pretty good job of it. But last year they put this thing out and they told everyone we're doing something that's just purely being developed by AI. Okay. And it was kind of like, it was an interesting play because it was like, we're using AI because it's the hot new thing, but we're also showing you what AI can do. And we're showing you that Coca-Cola is at the leading edge. The work didn't touch anybody really. But the opportunity with AI, and who knows what's coming out this year, it'll be well into development, probably finished by now. What's coming out this year? AI gives us an opportunity to form a relationship by helping the consumer to suspend disbelief. By that, I mean, if somebody comes up to me and goes, "Hey, David, I'm an AI. How was your breakfast this morning? I saw you had some couple of bits of toast and a couple of poached eggs. Must have been delicious." How do they know that about me? Right? Maybe it's a little bit intrusive. My example is too intrusive, but you get the point. But if I can create a relationship where I know that is AI talking to me, but it's somebody talking to me and trying to make AI make a relationship with me, then I'm prepared to suspend disbelief and go into that relationship with people. And I feel that on that human level, as I say, I think this idea that sort of creativity builds bonds, builds relationships, and therefore builds brands, I think that can still live. There is a kind of coming together of ideas. You know, people talk about sales tomorrow, brand over time. There's no time for brand over time. And sales tomorrow is it's kind of brand sales in 3 weeks, brand in 3 weeks. If you did that, maybe these two things could live together as more comfortable bedfellows than they currently are.
In that sense of consolidation, what are the CMOs buying? You know, is it governance speed? Is it convenience? I was shocked because I remember at a McCann meeting when I was back in the agency days when I told my US counterparts that we pitched 55 times in 52 weeks. And they were just floored by that. But I was just out with some Chicago-based agency friends the other day, and they said it's totally that way now in the US. And everyone's pitching constantly. There's no long-term sense relationship about working with a group of people and building that brand over time. It's all about quick fixes. So, you know, rosters are shrinking and the risk disappears. What gets lost in this and why are CMOs actually buying this consolidation? Do they see it beneficial?
It's a great challenge, right? So, and I think if we had a room full of CMOs, you get one answer from each in terms of the execution. In every single one of their job specs will be, and I'm paraphrasing, it'll say, you must create value for my company, whatever that means. And you must therefore create sales because we don't exist not to make money, right? And it's always been the same way from the first Egyptian tablet selling a piece of rope. The job was I bought that rope at one price and I'm selling it at another price. I'm there to make money so that I can buy things so that I can survive. What they're actually buying is they're taking part of the journey towards value and sales from that value. What they're buying is the day-to-day stuff. It's the numbers they need. So they need numbers. I need to show that $1 in buys me $10 out. All right. So I need to make sure you're buying high, you're buying low, and you're buying at the right, they're buying at the right value. I need accountability. It's one of the things, Ali, you and I spoke about the other day. Accountability, if it all goes pear-shaped, I need a throat to choke. I need somebody to talk to, and I need somebody to make that better and come back and give me value to the value of what I may have lost or to the value of what might have gone wrong. And that continues to drive a little bit of them and us, I find, from buyer and supplier. We'll come back to that topic in a while. There's an avoidance of sharp edges. Sharp edges might mean creativity. We're going to come back to this theme in just a moment at the end. And then they're buying safety. So safety is the bag in which all of that goes. There's a lot has been said over the last 10 days about what's happened to DDB. Okay. And DDB, Doyle Dane Bernbach. Yeah. Bill Bernbach, one of the godfathers of modern advertising, very famous guy. Always played it quite low key, just let his work do the talking, all that kind of stuff. The debate is not the fact that DDB is closed. They're all going to close. They're all going to close at some point. They will all exist in different ways, as we can see from the Y&Rs, the JWTs. I mean, everything is changing. And the ones that will happen next, if they haven't already, the FCBs, like the big American agencies which were bigger in the States than maybe they were in Asia, but they're all starting to collapse. So they're all going to close or change shape or change name or something in the future. But the DDB thing was a particularly sharp knife because it was the knife that slashed the agency's perception that creativity mattered, because it was number one, a creative brand. All that stuff from Volkswagen, it's been in every single case history, every single classroom, every single, for 60 years. That thing always comes up. You've seen the thing where what would the Think Small ad look like if the client got involved? Do you remember that series of things? And it's just like, and it's got a bomb burst here, and it's got loads of copy there. It's got the dealer stamp on the bottom, and it's we make light of it. Agencies always have a lot of fun at the expense of their clients, but the truth is, great clients make great advertising. Clients get the agencies they deserve. So in answer to the question about what are CMOs buying, they're buying what they want to buy. They're buying numbers, they're buying stats, they're buying the numbers around the advertising they're buying. Why are they doing that? Because they can. Because everything now can be tracked and traced. You can split it 1,000 different ways. You can split those numbers any way you want to through digital media and the way media dollars are spent. And in doing that, whilst there isn't a CMO in the world that would deny the power of brand and creativity to drive brand, and brand therefore driving value and sales, they basically don't have time for it because their entire job is making sure that they've still got their nose out of the water the following day, the following week, the following month. They don't have time to think long term, and long term requires a little bit more human and a little less automation.
I know we've had this discussion before, and Ali has this theory, just mainly because Ali and I worked in China for a long time, and we effectively saw the transformation of the market much sooner, much earlier than the rest of the world. It moved from a creative market where you had agencies, they had two creative teams. They had one creative team that was slow process brand building team that, oh, I'm sorry, we need 3 weeks on this, Bryce, not 3 days. What are you talking about? And then I had another team where the money was all being made. They were good at 3 days. It was a sausage factory there. And they were always debating about how they would merge those teams together. I said, sorry, but it's sausage factory is going to win. No one's going to wait that long for their pizza. And Ali's point was that maybe brands, they're different in the context of different. Their functionality, there's less emotion. The emotion comes from the influencer. It doesn't come from the brand essence and all these things that we learned. There's a market where consumers, especially on TikTok, are inundated with thousands of options. Colgate, during my time there, went from a 30% market share to a 3%. And it was because Chinese just bought different kinds of toothpaste every time they bought toothpaste. They weren't stuck on a brand. They were just enamored by that shiny object that they discovered on social media. That, wow, really? That's oolong tea toothpaste? That sounds amazing. Let me try that one. And then the brands just realized that, oh, we just got to get into the product game. And suddenly the whole market was just focusing on shiny objects. It really wasn't about brand essence and brand equity. Do you think that transforming to that kind of world where this is less important?
The toothpaste example that you just mentioned is a brilliant example of what we're talking about here. You've got Colgate, all right? So I can rely on Colgate. Colgate will do what I need to do to brush my teeth. It'll get me through the teeth brushing chore, that is morning, noon, and night, or however often you brush your teeth, whatever. Colgate, I can rely on that. I kind of like Colgate. Colgate's kind of always been there. It was there when I was a kid. Colgate's cool. Oh, hang on. Here's some shiny toothpaste over here. I did some work for a Chinese company, funnily enough. They were making black toothpaste with gold in it, like with gold in the paste, right? Now, what happened in India was that they went, oh, yeah, black with gold in it. Yeah, sorry, Colgate, you'll toast. I'm going for that. Okay. There are challenger brands in that category. If you take Marvis as a big US example, Marvis is really clever. Marvis just does what Dove and Pond's do. They have their cucumber variety and cucumber apricot, all these different plants. But then on the end of any series, they've got their thing that rotates. So you've got your strawberry, raspberry, myrtle, you've got all this stuff going on. That's what Marvis does very cleverly. And they stay in the cabinet, in the bathroom cabinet, longer, in the India example at least, than Colgate does. Because Colgate became just a very functional brand. It's just like we clean teeth, and then you get this cutaway to somebody brushing their teeth and the bristles going in between your teeth. It's like, guys, David Ogilvy famously said the consumer is not a moron. She's your wife. And he didn't mean that your wife is a moron. It's wonderful, turn of phrase. What he's saying is, look at the person that you're married to, making those household choices every day. The most sensible, strategic, creative person. She has to be. This is the 50s and the 60s. So she's a she. She has to be creative, making sure that household budget goes. She has to be creative to get the best deals. She has to be creative to make sure that there's little treats every single day for the kids and to keep things moving, to keep things spicy. Now, you don't need to show how toothpaste works to people, right? You don't need to do this with skincare. Like, I know we've all had a shower in the past. You squeeze it on, rub it, and then you put it on your body. Shampoo's a bit the same. I put it in, I rub it in my hair, and off I go. I don't need the cutaway. I don't need the demonstration. I don't need to see the engine when I go and buy a Toyota. I know it's a Toyota. I just need to know that it's not going to break down and that it's going to work and that it's going to do that efficiently. What's happened is the India example is a great example because Colgate just stopped being a bathroom favorite and it just became a expendable piece of brand fill that sat there waiting to be disrupted. It's the same as Fever Tree. Fever Tree, it's only tonic, but they had this thing about, well, 2/3 of what goes in the glass is tonic. Better make it count. You're like, yeah, sure. And they're still doing all the botanicals. And I've been to the Congo to get this special grub from a tree that does it's all part of the story, but people are making an effort to sell those stories. People are making an effort to make black toothpaste with gold in it. And Colgate just stopped making an effort with their advertising, with their products. They sure as hell have got moving now. If you see what they do now, they've got different colors, all their blue, purple, black, I believe. They've got the rosé version. They do all sorts of different things. But at the end of the day, it's a bit late because toothpaste just helps keep your teeth clean and fresh and uninfected by bacteria. So Colgate should have had their own skunk works doing black stuff with gold in it, not somebody else. And it's not about bolting the door after the horse is bolted and going out and buying that company, because that just that's a defensive strategy if you do that, because you're just buying people to shut them down so that you retain number one. People don't like number ones. They love the underdog. Like instinctively, human beings love the underdog. So yeah, Colgate didn't really engage, weren't enough of an underdog. And because of their size and processes, and you talk about efficiency be the enemy of creativity, there wasn't somebody in there going, guys, isn't it a bit patronizing showing how it works? Why don't we try toothpaste this way or that way? And I'm sure they're using influencers now, and I haven't seen any myself, but they missed the boat and they were caught napping. And that's what happens when you don't engage with people, build a brand, and then drive value through doing so.
I wonder whether it's also a market maturity issue as well. Because I wouldn't be surprised if there's still some markets, India, as an example, Southeast Asia, where you still talk about skin whitening or just hair hydration and the silkiness of your hair. And so you still have to, show some of those shots. But yeah, I think if we take China as an example, I think China's definitely moved from those close-up shots of hair being shampooed, combed, and then it's just bouncing off of some woman's shoulders to now being just some part of a day in the life of this lady or whatever that story is. It's very different.
But this isn't a new thing, Ali. I mean, if you but it's not a new thing. It's like the hair care ads you're talking about in China, Ali. You're right. You got that wonderful thick black hair and it cascades over the hands. I look at that and think, wow. I mean, that's a pretty staggering thing, but they're using it in a product demonstration way. They're not showing it as it's not natural, or if it was natural, she'd have to sort of go like that in a different context. When I was a kid, and it's why you have old people like me on podcasts like this, all right? But when I was a kid, and I'm not going to say back in the day because it wasn't back in the day. It was just when I was small. My dad always used to shush us when the Harmony hairspray ad came on, right? And what it was, very simply, it was two guys having a chat. You could do these things in those days, but two guys having a chat, and a girl walked past, and she had the most unbelievable mane of hair. And they had different, it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't, they tried to avoid stereotypes, I think. But there was a brunette lady, there was a blonde lady, there was a lady with curly hair, there was a lady with straight hair. And the guys just sort of go, nah, she's not. And the other guy, no, she definitely is. No, she's not. And the question was, is she, yeah, is she or isn't she wearing Harmony hairspray? Now, you know, cheesy, you couldn't do it today, blah, blah. But the intent of that is putting a person, that is how human beings respond to great hair. When I see something on a person that I think looks nice, I never get too personal, but it's okay to say, hey, that looks really great on you, you know? And sometimes I think you can only do it at a certain age or stage in life. Maybe, I don't know. I don't do
You
it
can do it more at certain ages.
I think you're right. But we've lost the art of commenting and complimenting one another on things. Your teeth look great. So, like, I remember once my boss, and you guys will remember Tim Isaac. We were in the office one day. I'd only been with Ogilvy maybe 5 years. I was a young account director. And he came up to me one day and said, can I ask you a personal question? I said, yeah, sure. I mean, he was the boss. He could ask anything he wants. How do you keep your teeth so white? I said, I don't know. That's just the way they are. What toothpaste do you use? And I used a toothpaste called LGDM, which is, I don't know, it's a French brand. I still use it today. But he's passing a compliment in asking you what brand you're using. And we've learned the art of using influencers. I know we're going to talk about influencers, and then mega influencers like celebrities in advertising. That's always happened. But I just think that we're losing that humanness. The question about efficiency versus creativity. Creativity for creativity's sake, Bryce, you're right, can be a crime. And we all know what we're talking about there. But
so in the new structure, who is going to be able to deliver that in the best way? Will it be these consolidated organizations, or are we looking more at smaller
Independent
groups
agencies.
of maybe tiny agencies, 5 dudes and dudesses, like 5 people together that working, and that it's a small crew of people? Is it will clients see that work will be done in a better way, the larger organizations? Are we going to witness a transformation in the industry, or is it just going to be pretty much the same as before? We have holding companies and independents in terms of delivering creative.
So I'm talking to marketing directors at the moment. I have a hypothesis, all right, which is, if you could, would you stick with your big agency, or would you like to use smaller agencies? Right now, I've done some through SurveyMonkey platform with an institute of marketing people. I'm not allowed to talk about, unfortunately, but the more senior you get, the more they want to use smaller agencies. Okay, so I'll give you 3 names, right? So Jim Stengel from Procter & Gamble, Keith Weed from Unilever, and then James Thompson, who is our regional guy, a regional CMO at Diageo in Asia, who you guys will also have known and probably work with as well. These people take huge risks within their organization to light fires, like set totems, to set beacons for creativity within their organization. I guess the most famous one would be Old Spice with the guy on the horse. I was given to a small bunch of people. They just set them free. And as an account man myself, you've always got a client looking at you kind of like, and you're like, what are you looking for? Where are the creatives? Where are the people that do the work? Clients don't know what it actually takes to motivate and get the best out of a creative. There's that fire and ice, there's that carrot and stick, there's that all these conflicting things. But getting the best out of a creative person is demonstrating that you've got their best interest at heart. And that's why clients need a consigliere. Okay. I think that a senior marketing director, a lot of the senior marketing directors that I have now spoken to are saying, I would rather work with small teams of very senior people, many of whom have left the agencies in the last sort of 3 to 5 years. But I can't do it all the time or as much as I'd like to, because we have global alignments, we have cost structures. I mean, a lot of these people cost a lot less than the agencies that they're paying at the moment anyway. But then you get to more down to the junior side. Junior marketers are very frustrated. They're given their teams by the agencies. You get what you're given. Those junior people are creating a very, very high percentage of all of the work that goes out for those big organizations. So the stats would lead you in the direction of very low risk, therefore very low creativity, therefore very low sort of sharp edges, very low sort of fun, very low sort of unleashing the power of culture around you. You know, Bryce, you started with the book Raw. That book started as that was a PowerPoint presentation I made at a Diageo conference where they were, thank you very much, still available on Amazon, selling fast. I'll sign it for a small fee. Please buy it. Anyway, that was a PowerPoint presentation of around about 240 images that played itself, and there were gaps in there. And my job was to remember what to say. As these images changed, there was a commentary that went with the images. And it was basically saying creativity is everywhere. If it's an Indian guy giving a smoldering rope so you can light the single cigarette you just bought, yeah, that's creativity. If it's the guy on a Bali beach with the word Google, but the two O's, one is an apple, one is an orange, because he's a fruit juice seller and he needs people to trust his fruit juice and not get a tummy upset, or if that's what it takes to be creative. So it's all around. So this whole thing about the consumer's not a moron, she's your wife, it's all around us. I think that, therefore, the senior marketers, I think the world will go more towards, there'll be mega consolidations to big agencies. There has to, within certain markets, I think there are very large, very creative agencies. So the UK market is a great example of that. You know, the biggest agency in the UK is also the most creative agency in the UK, and that's VCCP. They think like the Navy and they act like the pirates. The inventor of the meerkat. Who said put a meerkat in anything? And it's cheesy. It's meerkat market. Compare the meerkat. Compare the market. You hear this, but it's one of the most captivating brand marketing case histories of the last 15 years. And it's a runaway success. The more they advertise it, the less it costs them to advertise, The investment is starting to pay off. So that value and those sales are starting to come through that we talked about earlier. So I think there needs to be a consolidation on one level, because that's unavoidable. But then I think that consolidation, and I hope, will spawn a really big, what I would call like an aftermarket culture of very senior people in very small bands of people doing very big projects for very large organizations. And people like Diageo are already doing it. Coca-Cola does it a lot. Jonathan Mildenhall, when he was at Coke, drove a lot of that innovation with small companies and small bunches of people. And I think so. There's kind of, I think I want to say that the big agency consolidation may not be good day to day for sort of mid and junior marketing people, but it will be very good for the more senior marketing people who will want to break out. They'll have the temerity, the means, and the seniority to handle these small agencies who may not be as accountable. They don't have the financial means. There's different ways of paying them. There's different ways of engaging them. If it all goes wrong, bit here today, gone tomorrow, perhaps. But there's always been a lot of merit in hiring boutiques, as we can call them, to inject creativity into the main vein of the arm of the brand. And I hope that will continue. So I'm looking at this through a positive lens rather than a kind of DDB's closed, the whole thing's gone to shit. I don't think it's that. We'll get a newer version.
So just building on that, how much of that responsibility do you think is still, is on the shoulders of an agency versus on the shoulders of a brand director or a brand team or a marketing team that has agency pedigree? We're talking about, it's 2025. Agencies have been around the block. Anyone that's in a marketing function has been account director or creative services lead or creative strategist or strategist or some type of an agency person. You see a number of large multinationals that are building out content studios or creative studios, some type of creative function. Apple in-houses a lot of their creativity. Coca-Cola does as well. And agencies exist to serve a very specific function. And, these agency relationships are being led by former agency leaders.
Yeah.
And now powered and armed with AI, is that disintermediation, set in stone? And, brand is really, advertisers are going to take control over their brand again. As in, there's no outsourcing of that. And the only piece that's really left is for boutiques that are experts in production work or, specific, very, very specific specialized work.
A really searching question, isn't it? Because if you look 2 generations hence, right, if we're not teaching our junior and mid-level marketers that brands and the creativity that fuels them is what makes the difference between you and your competitors, right? Or it's okay to just lean back on AI and they'll tell you how well you're doing versus the competition. That is going to be a question for marketers of the future, right? When you ask who is responsible, I do think that this consolidation is putting the power back in the hands of the clients. The best clients I've ever worked with are the ones that just go, you have to do this. You can't, that's immovable, right? The list of immovables used to be quite a short list. You might just give the agency like the brand book, typeface, color, all that kind of stuff. Just go, don't touch any of that at all. I'll tell you a story about Coca-Cola in a minute. But the list of immovables is now so long because people are erring on the side of caution. So saying, I don't know about that. So let's just put it in the don't touch it bucket, So all the time that caution is creeping into the marketer. They're not going to be aware of what creativity and the brands it creates and the value that those brands drive can do for them. So I think it's incumbent upon the agencies that you've described, Ellie, to keep driving hard at clients and try to explain to them when those creative guys stop being the angry young enfant terrible that they used to be in the agency and they come out and they're like, oh, hang on a minute, I need to do this on my own now. They turn into one of two people. One is they continue to be an enfant terrible and then they turn into something a bit more curmudgeonly. And there's endless David Ogilvy quotes about this as well, but mood hoovers, not welcome kind of thing. You don't want those. But if you look at some of the most successful people who have done it, and there's a guy in the UK, Niels Leonard, who I don't know personally, but I've seen him speak. I read what he writes. He's just a guy who you can go to and have a conversation. He'll give you a good piece of advice on where you should be. And I think what's great about slightly older people is that they will have a point of view on your business based on their experience, based on what they see. Yet they might be a narrow audience. Don't ask certain about demographics that are nothing to do with it, but they can offer a point of view, not just on the brand itself, but how to approach getting the brand in front of the consumers that it's designed for. So I think that certainly marketers need to arrest this delegation of the brand to somebody else. In a big organization, it's very difficult. The minute you're taking that responsibility inboard and onto your own shoulders, good things happen. You're responsible for driving those sales. You're responsible for taking risks. You're responsible for making things more creative. You're responsible for that. The guy holding the thing in front of those people getting on that plane and going, the flown cheap with my airline, because it's up to you, but you are taking responsibility for it. You will be given more responsibility. So that would be me for CMOs. I think for agencies are very worried. Big agencies are worried that if they push too hard, it's almost like they're asking for too much. And there's a certain cynicism around the transaction between the big client and the big agency at the very top. And there's no, you can go to all the lunches and events and you can do all the schmoozing you like at that level. At the end of the day, the big guy wants to keep his job at the agency by taking more money from the client that he's there to look after, basically. And the client's got to have his or her eyes open to make sure that they're not just paying more for the same thing. If you go to a big procurement company, I think they've got it pretty well sorted out. I know 3 procurement companies in particular, very big ones, who will sign a 7-year deal with a brand. Let's take Coca-Cola as an example. In year 1 of those 7 years, let's just say you're paying $100. The idea is that same $100 will be generating more value at the end of the 7 years, but that $100 will not go down and will only go up by the rate of inflation. So good for a client. Well, yeah, you're going to give me more for the same over the next 7 years. I can lock that in. And the agency's got something to play with when it comes to, a slightly longer term relationship. I think that needs to find its way back into marketing because it's a very difficult job being a marketing director now. It's sales, it's technology, it's relationships. There's a company I've just been working with, funnily enough, who have developed an index for the value of personal relationships, either inside companies or with partners, and she's doing incredibly well. Some quite big FMCGs have picked her up already because, again, it's invisible value that you need to try and sort of numerate if you can.
I posted this on LinkedIn, but I remember the WPP announcement where CEO Cindy Rose mentioned that they've created this new AI platform that basically allows brands to skip agencies altogether. And of course, we always thought that that was highly contradictory since they are in the agency business, that now they're instructing clients to just skip agencies and just go onto this AI platform. Are we seeing the Uberization of advertising? I mean, what might a true collective agency model look like in practice? I'm sure that we'll see a lot more of these type of models where you could skip the process of dealing with people, and that you can go straight to this special model that just eliminates the middle person altogether.
So the WPP move is a debate all by itself. I mean, it's either an expedient defensive move saying, look, if you must go elsewhere, at least go elsewhere via us. I don't know what the business model or the payment model is for that. Or
On WGP Open, I didn't say anything. I should, a potential future employer. I'm not going to say anything untoward. Well,
but the thing is,
so.
if you talk to enough clients today and ask them what they're looking for, this handmade, this bespoke, this, it's kind of what clients are asking for. I mean, I haven't seen the platform. I don't know quite how it works. It's you guys have probably played fantasy football before. It's like, okay, well, who's in goal? Who's in defense? Who's in the center? Who's on the wing? Who's up front? You put all those in, then you've got your team, and then your team goes forth and combats other teams that play in the fantasy league that you're part of. And, so it comes back to the part of the previous question, which is around marketers taking back control of their brands. With a long career where you've worked with as a marketer, where you've worked with various different agencies, you can see people in those agencies. You can see people who make things happen. You can see the disruptors. You can see the safe pairs of hands. You can see the people that you trust. You can see the people, the expedient ones who you never want to see again. I mean, you see all these people on that journey on the way through. And I think the distilled version, so the Uberization thing for me would be, I've got a project and I would like to find these individuals to work on this with me. So everyone moves through an organization, everyone goes their separate ways at some point. If we were all on a platform, they say, hey, I want Ali to do this bit, I want David to do this bit, and I want Bryce on the numbers and probably do this bit. All the stuff that you guys did brilliantly in China, that would be a good thing. I mean, I was part of an organization that did that, which was basically putting clients directly in touch with creative people. This is in the last 5 to 7 years. And it was very successful. And there's companies everywhere. There's the Dots, there's Cavalier, where you can basically pick up freelance talent to do what you want to do. What WPP's done is slightly bigger than that. It's basically saying, here is my type of project. Here's how much money I've got. Here are the territories. Here's what I'm trying to achieve. And the AI is working out the ideal team for them from all the companies and all the skills that they have. Setting that up is big if it's not an organic exercise like a Facebook or a LinkedIn has been over the last X number of years. So it's a difficult thing to get moving. But I think the intent's quite good. I mean, if you're in a big holding company and the holding company is prepared to keep you on some kind of retained presence, this is great temptation of companies still to pay one person 5 days a week with 3 weeks holiday. Even that's starting to look a bit shaky these days. But there's a lot of people out there who just say, well, yeah, I'll work 80% of the time if I can do 4 days, or I'm so good at what I do, I'll work 80% of my time for double what you're paying me. But if someone's prepared to foot that bill and pay you to be on their system that only they can have access to, it's actually quite a good idea. I think the Uberization is a good thing because you get variety, you get that accountability we talked about earlier. The job of making sure there is sameness and that there is one pathway and it doesn't go all over the place is the job of the CMO in that example, Ali. But as you just said, I mean, they're taking a lot of systems and people and skills and approaches in board. They're doing it because the agencies are set up like they are, and therefore, are they getting those pointy edges? They need to shop the market to get those. I think, Bryce.
I see it in a different way, and I know all of us have had this experience. I know you have, David, where you're at a pub or a coffee shop or a restaurant somewhere. You make friends with the owner, you know them, and then suddenly the discussion gets into advertising or communications, or even like creating the right slogan or doing the right message. And then suddenly you're giving free advice. my father was an architect. He would draw on a paper napkin a little drawing or a garage, and then he would send people a bill. Much to the person's surprise, like why he was getting a bill for the design, my father would reply, "The bank doesn't give away free samples." So that was his message. But I think to myself at the same time, there's a lot of like great ideas, and there's also a lot of really shitty small businesses that are not doing the right things properly. They never will be able to afford Ogilvy or VML or any of these agencies, but they could actually have access to this kind of ideas and technology that would enable them to actually improve their business, get the messages out there, being clever. It's not going to be necessarily perfect, but it certainly could improve on their execution. So I kind of think to myself that maybe that's the approach, is that it's more about democratization. It's not just for the big players anymore. It's for anybody that could essentially have this opportunity to shine in an AI environment.
You're right. I mean, as you know, as the saying goes, a good idea doesn't care who had it. You know, it is all about how it's executed, managed, brought into the world. You can't just have a child and give it away. I mean, great ideas are like children. You've got to nurture them, grow them, be with them, stand by them through thick and thin. And marketers increasingly are less and less doing that. I think you're absolutely right. There is an awful lot of really, really bad behavior out there. I've been working with somebody fairly recently who all the ideas were done storyboard. There was no use of AI. It was all done by hand. And then suddenly out there in social, this thing has been up, and it's the most appallingly executed work, get ideas, and then chop the legs off and produce it in that way. And then you've got government. There's a thing in the Singapore government the other day. There's a pitch going off. There's 76 agencies asking to submit stuff. It's like, all that does, it just demonstrates that you don't know what you're looking for, but you'll know when you see it. And I'll know what I see on a Tuesday. Oh, I like that. I like brown on a Tuesday. Like Wednesday, like, oh, hang on, I like purple. It's quite this indecision and this indecision and very, very bad manners.
Like, just to defend the Singaporean government, maybe it's about also inviting and introducing alternative agencies into the mix. Otherwise, you'd end up with just the standard four, the larger one of them, the ones that have some relationship, you know. And I think it just opens up, I'm just being contrarian, but I think it creates opportunity for smaller agencies to also, work with the government.
I agree with that. I mean, I think, but that's what we're saying though, Ali. I mean, it's a matter of clients now. Okay, go to the big agencies. You need that safety, security. Your finance director needs to be signing checks for somebody that they've heard of. That's cool. Okay, so, but for the sake of your brand, for the sake of your people, to make sure your good people don't leave, set them free a little bit. Allow them that latitude to think like the Navy and act like the pirates. Allow them the opportunity to use the right side of their brain. Allow them the opportunity to make a mistake and mess it up. We've all made mistakes, and we've seen some massive brand mistakes in the past that hit the headlines like you wouldn't believe. But everyone makes mistakes every single day. We don't normally hear about those ones. They just move on. If you've got a big enough vision, big enough strategy, broad enough shoulders, and an intelligent enough team, those mistakes will be, the narrative will be, yeah, we fucked up. We didn't mean to do that. Obviously we have to avoid offending people and individuals, but if a mistake has been made in the most honest way, in the pursuit of excellence and the pursuit of inclusion and the pursuit of creativity and the pursuit of entertainment, which is what brands are all about, then it's an honest mistake and enough people will understand. And I think it would be nice if the holding companies flicked a few crumbs off their table to the rest of the world and kind of went, okay, look, so you're offering us $100 to do all this work, and obviously we've got to make a margin, and here's my margin's only this, whereas actually backstage the margin is this. Look at the shareholders, look at what the bosses are being paid, blah, blah, blah. Wouldn't it be great if they sort of said, we reserve the right to take 10% of what you're paying us, and we will shop the market on your behalf outside my organization to bring you the best of what you want on skunk projects, on creative projects. And
I wonder if that's going to be something that's going to, we talked about challenger brands earlier, and I know that, everyone supports the underdog. We always say in advertising, follow the money trail, right? And And it's, clients drive transformation in agencies, et cetera, et cetera. So if you look at, the automotive industry completely disrupted by EVs, EVs have a way of working, which is from a creative perspective or a media delivery activation perspective, very different to the way the traditional agency would work. And so they've got, they're working with a new set of agency altogether. So there's new agency formation just to serve the needs of these disruptive kind of brands. The same you could say the same is also true for Xiaomi and mobile telephony and like eSIMs versus physical SIMs, etc. I wonder if it's new advertisers and new products, and as products innovate and advertisers innovate and there's new market entrants, that's what's going to end up really driving the type of creativity that resonates with consumers in the future. And therefore, the role of the advertiser is going to be different, the role of agency is going to be different, the type of work is going to be different, the application of AI is going to be different. I think we're moving towards that. We talked about, the death of the 100-year-old brand as well in previous podcasts. I don't know that. What do you think, David?
We're going into an interesting sort of next era, okay? Because the trouble is that everyone's kind of homogenizing. Everyone kind of looks and feels the same. We all say the same things. I was talking to somebody this week who said that when his son is talking to him, he keeps using this expression, yeah, blah, 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 full disclosure. It's verbal tick. Would you like a Big Mac? Yeah, full disclosure, I kind of would. The hell are you talking about? We're all buying the same things, we're saying the same things, we're looking like the same things. At the age of, we always used to say in Asia, didn't we? It's not good to stand out of the crowd. It's good to stand out within the crowd, which is where brands went. And that was kind of quite good. If we could take some of that and acknowledge the fact that we are all exactly the same. We're all saying full disclosure. My daughter sometimes says things like, she's got this other thing. She keeps using the expression whatnot and whatnot. Blah, blah, blah. Here's the list and whatnot. But we're picking this up from each other, and therefore new things will always struggle to try and get out. I think that we've got to think pretty deeply about not where the new things coming from. There's bags of new things. So one hour on TikTok, and you'll come away going, there's a bunch of new things. Now, they're either new to you and thousands of other people are doing them, or no one's seen them and you're seeing them for the first time. That's up to you to try and work out. So it's less about finding those things. It's about finding the relevance within them and why they would create a bridge to a consumer. But it's also taking the risk and going, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm sorry, I'm using all the wrong examples. I should be using more global examples, but a gorilla playing a drum set. What?
I love that one. That was fantastic.
But there's a wonderful one of the architects of that, this guy Mark Sinek, who I used to work with. He had this wonderful story behind it about how it happened, and somebody said no, and then it's kind of crept out. Campaign for Real Beauty. That was kind of it's a small thing. I'm not sure. The clothes didn't come off in that shoot until the photographer said, "Get your kit off, girls. We're taking this shot." The client didn't have to put that out. But as the narrative formed and the realness and the genuine intent behind it started to manifest itself, the more that happened, the less those ladies had to wear in order to get that message across. And I think that is a great example of just a very, very iterative, creative bonding process, to be honest.
One thing we haven't talked about, and I think this is going to be a result of all this AI and automation that we're seeing. We've talked about numbers, we talked about the quantification. We're so close to there's so much transparency in the way companies operate. They go through their reporting cycles, et cetera, and there's clear kind of cause and effect between what they do in studio, in agency, with brand, and how that affects share price, et cetera. And there's numerous studies that kind of suggest that there's cause and effect. And so I wonder if the younger brand directors they're so keen on buying results, and AI is just kind of giving them that possibility, and therefore that's also kind of augmenting or adding to the depth of creativity and all that, the boutiquiness and all that fun stuff that we've been talking about. Because AI said that if you want to achieve a 25% growth, this is what you need to do, and this is when you need to do it, and this is how you need to do it. Now we just need to find someone that will. And that someone that will, it's either human or machine. And if the machine can do it for 50% less, then that sounds like a pretty good decision to me.
Well, look, they used to call that corridors of freedom, all right? And if those corridors are getting narrower, then it's the job of creativity. Creative should, by definition, be more potent because they've got less room to maneuver. You need, I think at the level where transparency within organizations lives, I think that not enough is made of creativity. That you won't get in a company statement, we reserve the right to be creative, or we reserve the right to explore the corners of creativity. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't feature. But if you talk, most successful investor in the world, Warren Buffett, I'm using a bit of a cliche. You talk to him, he talks about the value of creativity. Look at, he's bought into Heinz, he's bought into Coca-Cola. Large chunks of those companies don't exist. They exist in the heads and hearts of the people that buy their products. And that's it. So he understands it. The trouble is that the people below Warren Buffett, almost on every level, Bill Gates, he was creative. He put his neck out there. I mean, all the people that have done anything resounding in the world are relatively creative people. There are many exceptions, of course. But I think that, I genuinely think that bosses should encourage their marketers to swim towards those narrowing corridors of freedom, for sure.
Risk and creativity go hand in hand.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway,
Go back to the financing. As I said, the finance directors, they wear Nikes. They're some of the best right-brain people I've ever worked with. And people like me and creative people, and they rely on really, really good finance people. If you bring a finance person into the creative process, your creativity will be better than if they weren't involved. Yeah, unless it's your client's finance director writing the checks.
I totally agree with that. David, it was really awesome for you to be on the show and have this great discussion. We should have definitely done it a long time ago, but thanks for taking the time to do this. And I will definitely put a link to the book, Raw: Persuasive Creativity in Asia. I'll put it on in the show notes. So it's definitely a great book. It's very inspiring to me. It's on the shelf. That's why I just grabbed it in preparation for the show. So, yeah, it was great. Thanks again for being with us.
Thank you, guys. It's been fantastic. And the really, really good searching questions. What's very interesting about all of those main sort of topic buckets that you've put together, very often a lot of the conclusions and outcomes of those are, as I said earlier, not just cousins, but siblings. It's one discussion. Yep, definitely. More to say, always.
Absolutely. No, definitely more. Thanks again for being on the show, David. And thank you for joining us today. Join us in a few weeks for another exciting show. And to all our listeners, until then, have a great day.